Just realize everybody is here to party.
Greetings and welcome, fellow barium inimists, fluoroscopists, and cross-table lateralists. I am your host,
Ron Jones!
and I am not a radiology technician. Nope, I'm a technologist, and I've been in this field long enough to know that just because you came into my emergency room at 2 a.m. with a chronic back pain times 6 years does not mean the x-ray should be stabbed. This is the Radiologic Technologist podcast for RadTechs by RadTechs. Thanks for listening.
Welcome back to another Q&A Friday. I'm Ron Jones. This is the Radiologic Technologist channel, and I have another question that I have neglected to answer in a timely manner. I'm so sorry. This one was about a week ago from a user named Friday Sat. They commented on one of my videos where we talk about a bachelor's degree in radiography. But the question is, do you think it is worth it to do both careers? And by that, they mean radiography and nursing. I'm having trouble deciding between a nursing career and radiology. Also, I saw one of your comments on another video where you had mentioned that there were no RRAs at your workplace. Is that because there was no need for them there, or y'all were unable to hire an RRA? So two very distinct questions. So let's get started on those. First of all, radiology and nurse. I cannot think of a more powerful combination besides that of being a radiologist than the combination of a radiographer and a nurse. First of all, you know how I feel about radiography. I think it's the best career. The options are almost limitless on the things you can do. It can make you a lot of, you literally can, make 150,000 a year if you're willing to work at it within 3 years of graduation. It takes some call, maybe at a couple of places, maybe a couple of jobs. But if your goal is to make $150,000 a year, it is possible as an x-ray tech, and it is certainly possible if you move up in modalities to CT, MRI, ultrasound, one of the other advanced modalities. But nursing, on the other hand, can also pay very well. There is always going to be a need for nurses, just like there's always going to be a need for radiographers, because healthcare is going to continue to expand. The baby boomers are going to continue to crush the healthcare system as they continue to grow older and need more care. The x-ray schools are not putting out enough students at this point. We do go in cycles. There are times, 2003, when I entered the school for radiography, there were about 7 radiography programs in the area. I was in the Phoenix metropolitan area in Arizona. That was too many schools, and that made it difficult for people to find jobs, but not difficult for people that worked hard on their clinicals and were willing to take part-time jobs at multiple hospitals, and so they could get their foot in the door, or so that they could get their foot in the door, if you want to say it that way. So radiography is a phenomenal career, and nursing is a phenomenal career. Of course, I'll poke fun at the nurses every now and then because somebody's got to do it. But I have thought about doing both. I seriously have thought about doing both. At one point, I was laid off in a small town and unable to find another job in that small town as an administrator. There's only one hospital in the town, and I was the radiology director, and I went to unemployment until I could find another job. And they said, well, if you can't find another job doing what you're doing, that makes you a displaced worker, which meant they would pay to send me back to school for a new skill set if I so would choose to do that. And I immediately thought of nursing. I have thought about nursing for probably the past decade. For one, because I'm a lifetime student. For some reason, when I'm in school, I can't stand it. But when I'm out of school, I feel like there's something I'm not doing. So I've thought about going back for nursing The only thing really that stopped me was full-time work. Uh, if you could do clinicals on the weekends for nursing and go to night school, I probably would have done it by now. But nursing typically, traditionally, is a lot like radiography school, where it's Monday through Friday. Your clinicals might bleed into the weekend a little bit, but for the most part, you got to do it all week long. Um, could I have pulled it off? Yeah, if I really wanted to, the same way I pulled off working full time and going to x-ray school, or working full time and going to ultrasound school. But um, I think it is a powerful combination having both. You wouldn't do both in a job, most likely. I'm trying to think about that, because if you are a licensed radiographer and a licensed nurse, you're probably just going to end up being the radiology nurse in a radiology department, and you'll be doing nursing duties. It would probably be highly unlikely that you would step out of your nursing department to go shoot an x-ray. Doesn't mean you can't. And if you're in a small rural location, you could wear multiple hats, just like most critical access hospitals. Your x-ray tech does 3 or 4 modalities. So, I think it's a powerful combination. I think where that power would take you to is to be a nurse practitioner. If you were a radiographer who then completed a nursing program, I would seriously consider nurse practicing, because once you graduate that program, you're your own boss. You can hang your own shingle, as they say, open your own clinic and be the head of the clinic, where a physician assistant does not have complete autonomy, at least not yet. They're not as powerful. Their lobby in Congress is not as powerful as the nursing lobby. The nursing group gets a lot more of what they want. And by that, I mean they now have nurse practitioning. They have a doctorate of nurse practitioning, so they're called doctors when they graduate that program. They can, even without the doctorate, a nurse practitioner can open her own clinic and see her own patients and work completely on her own with her own staff, where a physician assistant has to report to a physician. Last time I checked, there was a PA, for example, down in the Grand Canyon that worked with the tribe down there. And that's somewhat autonomous, but he still had to call up to the rim side to a physician and report in. And I bring up the PAs because the RRAs that you mentioned, to segue into that next question, the RRAs are very similar to a PA, only they don't write prescriptions. So when I had mentioned that there were no RRAs at my workplace, the problem with the RRA, the Registered Radiology Assistant, which really is a PA for radiologists, and it's sorely needed. I'm telling you, anesthesiologists have nurse anesthetists, doctors have PAs and nurse practitioners. There is no mid-level provider for radiologists. And radiologists are going to get squeezed more and more as time goes by. I wish the RPA program at Weber State had stayed open. It was open for like 20-something years. The Radiologic Practitioner's Assistant, it had its own board, the CBRPA. I was in that program for 3 semesters. I was at the point where I was doing lumbar punctures and paracentesis and charting. It was fabulous. It was exactly what I wanted to do. But that program closed. And the offshoot of that is the RA program, which, there's like 20 or more of those now across the country. But the difference is the RPAs had a little bit more latitude. They could do a little bit more. They could even do preliminary interpretations on chest x-rays. At least we were doing it where I was at, because it was really up to the level of comfort of your overseeing radiologist. RAs absolutely cannot do anything close to interpretation. To me, it's kind of more of a pared down. You have less ability to do more higher level examinations. But to get to the underlying part of your question about why they were unable to hire them, why didn't they hire them, for a long time, I mean, up until about a year ago, I believe it finally passed, but up until that time a year ago, you could not bill for what an RRA did. So if your RRA did a lumbar puncture, you couldn't bill as if the radiologist did it. But I believe last time I checked, they finally passed something. The Center for Medicare, CMS, I believe, passed something saying you could bill for 80% of the radiologist's fees if an RRA completed it. But I'm not in that field really anymore. So of the RRAs anyway, you'd have to ask them. And there's none at my facilities. I've never had any at my facilities. There are several out there. You can go to cbrpa.org and maybe it'll tell you how many there are out there. Because like I said, the program went on for, gosh, probably 25 years before it closed. It just closed about 2 years ago, I think. So the rest of that story then is that if a hospital wanted to employ them, either the hospital had to pay their salary and it was just more of a glorified tech, or the radiology group had to pay the salary because they were benefiting from the RRA taking on some of their workload. Now, what I just said on both sides is somebody's paying the RRA, but what I said earlier is you can't get reimbursed for what they do. So you're looking at a true cost there with no benefit, other than the true benefit was a radiologist can get a lot more of his higher level work done with an RRA doing his lower level work. In other words, if an RRA sat in the floral room and did BEs and upper GIs all day, that would free up the radiologist to sit in his reading room and read more studies. There was a case study done, gosh, it's probably been 10 years now, where somebody analyzed the practice where that occurred. And I think the numbers were by the end of the year, that group made an additional $1 million because the radiologist was able to sit in his chair and read more MRIs and more exams than he would if he'd had to keep getting up out of his chair to go do lumbar punctures and upper GIs and all that stuff. So in the long run, the practice makes more money utilizing a mid-level provider than if the radiologist is doing those procedures. That's what justifies the radiologist group paying the RRA themselves. But if you've ever worked with radiology groups, you know that they don't want to pay for anything. They don't want to share their money. So they try to get the hospital to pay the bill and make the case that, you know, we can make more money for the hospital if you guys will hire one of these people. But the hospitals don't want the liability. So if something finally got passed a year or two ago, that's a good thing because that's in the favor of the RRAs. But I'm not sure what passed. You'd have to go look that up. So to my knowledge, where I worked, we didn't have any RRAs or RAs because they weren't something you could bill for. They were an expensive super tech, some people call them. So where I've worked, they would just rather employ a regular tech to do regular tech duties. The doctors do the doctor duties, and there's no middle ground. So I hope that answers your question. If you have more, let me know. That's about the extent of my knowledge of I've got a whole blog post on my website about about both actually. The end of the RPA program at Weaver State, I wrote about that when that happened, and what an RRA is and what they have to do and the testing they go through and all that stuff. There's a pretty lengthy article on the RRA. So if you want to know more about either one of those, go check out my blog. It's the Radiologic, it's right there, the radiologictechnologist.com. I do have a Facebook group if you were so inclined to get more involved. Or keep visiting this channel. Of course, hit the like button and subscribe because that'll tell you, there's a bell that'll tell you when I upload new videos. And thanks for stopping by my channel. I appreciate it. Good luck.